Generative social interaction can occur between human and non-human actors, between the self and objects of the environment. Exchange between human and object can be materially productive and should be included in understandings of socially engaged art practice. This essay aims to widen anthropocentric definitions of what is considered social in regards to social practice. A painter painting with gouache, any content they like, is different than a painter painting with the social, cultural significance of the medium. I refer to sections from Education for Socially Engaged Art by Pablo Helguera, a book that was in my introduction and guide to social practice to support my ideas. This writing, supported by images, is itself an artifact of my experience in Yonkers, New York, assigned to create a socially engaged work for my graduate class. My performative work there led me to produce this script. During my second semester within the Media Arts and Culture program at Purchase College in New York, my Practice 2 course, an artwork production course, was held at the Riverfront Yonkers Public Library. The reason for meeting off campus was so that we could produce and present publicly a socially engaged artwork within the community. At the beginning of the semester, my professor and the library technology coordinator described how the daylighting of the Sawmill River had both disrupted and revitalized the downtown area. They described the incursion of luxury apartments, wealthy persons leaving New York City, affecting the landscape and existing communities. An observable issue, the Library Technology Center where we met every class had equipment that was being underutilized. We were expected to address one of these issues or find our own to investigate. I began to feel worried that my interests, research, and skills would not coincide with the communities. Helguera says wisely, if, however, the artist acts solely as agent and completely obeys the decisions and follows the interest of the community, in which the artist's job is only to solve a problem as a professional technician, such gestures of service are usually well-intended, but they are in essence paternalistic and reflect the same lack of interest in open exchange as an artist who imposes his or her vision on a community. I struggled to see my own artistic objectives belonging in Yonkers. I was aware not to enter Yonkers as a missionary. As a white, male-passing person from a graduate program in Westchester County, New York, my presentation affords societal privilege. I felt I was contributing to the gentrification of Yonkers, colonizing a space that did not belong to me. Though the invitation to enter the space was extended to me, it was so indirectly. I felt uncomfortable to address subjects such as oppression and appropriation within Yonkers, as they did not affect me. Some would call this feeling white guilt, but identifying it then as such did not help to resolve it. When I expressed my discomfort, my professor told me to try and integrate a project that I was already working on into the space, to think of Yonkers as a host, a platform. I showed project proposals to my professor, class guest speakers, the library technology coordinator, and the library gallus, but my projects were not supported. One of these projects was an interactive video projection. As viewers walked through the projection, white light would appear around them. The project was simple and unspecific. I thought its universality made it appropriate for the space. I met with the Technology Center coordinator to discuss where the project could be installed. After introducing it to them, they said that it sounded great, but complicated, and asked me how I was going to teach the kids how to make the interactive projection themselves. I replied respectfully that I did not want to teach anyone anything, only install the work and interact with guests that are interacting with it. The coordinator's demeanor changed immediately. They hurried the rest of our conversation, denied me the contact of the library gallus, and ushered me back into the classroom. I had the impression that the coordinator wanted my peers and I to teach in the Technology Center. And because I was not interested in doing this, the coordinator was not interested in me or my work. For class, it was mandatory that we attend a workshop in the library in an effort to engage the community. I attended the Job Search Help workshop, all the while feeling like an outsider, observing the people there. I engaged with a few people, but my interests were not reciprocated or understood. Being that I am employed, I felt guilty again. I wondered which communities in Yonkers would accept me. Weeks later, the library galleries came to speak about their work in Yonkers during one of our class sessions. I presented the projection project to them, but they did not consider the interactive projection socially engaged. I presented another project inspired by the Job Search Help workshop to the library galleries. During the workshop leader would ask everyone she met with, "How can I help you?" For my project, I would make a flyer that read, "How can I help you?" with a phone number to reach me that could be ripped off at the bottom. I had done another project like this before, successfully, where I distributed my personal phone number to strangers who had freedom to message me anonymously. The galleries described the project as problematic, suggesting, who was I to offer help to the Yonkers public? Helguera would describe my presence and disposition within the Yonkers community as being non-voluntary, because my presence was required. My art practice, which I believe to be a social practice, did not seem to fit the pedagogical criteria Helgera used to define C. The collaboration between the community and myself felt contrived. I was not going to control a collaborative work with the individuals of the community. Helgera wrote that a C artist must control a social situation in an instrumental and strategic way in order to achieve a specific end. If this work does not do this, it is not an actual act, but a symbolic one. Still, an act. Helgera described the social practitioner as often confusing themselves with an amateur activist, politician, anthropologist, or sociologist. All of these disciplines study and observe the significance of objecthood and culture. In the middle of the semester, influenced by discussions about ecology and object-oriented ontology in my media theory course, I presented the idea to my professor to photograph textures of the buildings and of the landscape of Yonkers, frame them, and give them to the library. My professor urged that the project should be more thoughtful. They suggested that I address how the new high-rises were affecting the landscape. I would photograph the rooms. During our conversation, I had the idea to tour the apartments, posing as a potential buyer. I would photograph the rooms in the Hudson River, display them together, and write beneath the photographs the cost of the room's rent per month, to contrast the unaffordable new apartment rooms to the invaluable Hudson River. Then I would distribute the prints around town in the library, posting them to telephone poles and leaving them on bookshelves to make my work accessible. Helgera describes the individual as the construct of a vast collectivity of people who have influenced one's thoughts, one's values. A plural entity. To speak to oneself is more than a solipsistic exercise. It is rather a silent way of speaking to the portion of civilization that is summarized in our minds. In this way, I believe that social exchange can occur internally, silently, within the self, and certainly between self and objects, which have their own weighted cultural associations. I toured 2 apartment buildings, Sawyer Place and Hudson Park, posing as a young man from New York City, looking to move into Yonkers with my wealthy partner when I started graduate school in the fall. My husband and I's budget was around $3,000 a month. I wanted to see the largest rooms. At Sawyer Place, they took my driver's license at the front desk, though I'm not sure why. A masculine presenting person in a business suit began their art tour by showing me the common spaces and the construction happening on the roof. I took my pictures on a point-and-shoot camera. The agent showed me 4 rooms, one from which I could see the historic Philip C. Manor Hall State House from the floor-to-ceiling window. The agent showed me a furnished room, staged, to get an idea of how the rooms could be decorated. I complimented his taste. He asked me how old I was, and I replied 24, when I'm really 23, and the lie was not protecting me from anything. He offered me a beer, and though it was 10 o'clock in the morning, I accepted and felt that the moment was right to ask more personal, investigative questions. Playing the part and based off genuine curiosity, I asked about the queer community of Yonkers, if there was one present. The man revealed that he himself was gay and grew up in Yonkers. He pointed out his childhood home a few blocks away. He explained with familiar melancholy that the queer community was present but hiding. Queer people came together once a year in the summertime for a pride event. Otherwise, they connected to one another through dating applications. I asked him how he thought the new high-rises were affecting the community. He said downtown had changed drastically in the last few years, but he saw the new wealth in Yonkers as progressive. He seemed to be ambitious, having studied and earned his master's degree in New York City. His friends that never left Yonkers were upset by the changes. As I was leaving, he checked my driver's license before smiling and handing it back to me. At Hudson Park, an agent showed me around the rooms. He was also a gay man. Telling me how he and his partner, a costume designer in New York City, were leaving next week to Spain for vacation. In one of the rooms, he opened the door to a balcony that overlooked where the Sawmill River met the Hudson. I took my photos. We talked about how beautiful the views were from up here, even on the cloudy day. I had trouble closing the door coming back in the balcony. We did it together, laughing. He described residential programming, showed me fitness centers, and I, playing my part, asked questions about carpet, air conditioning, and the commute time into the city. The agent was proud of the apartments, especially of the new building currently under construction, called the Hudson Park River Club, which when it is completed in the fall will be the tallest, most expensive, most exclusive of the Hudson Park buildings. The agent was excited to show me the indoor pool and roof common space still in development. Both agents were supportive of the luxury apartments, probably because they are on the better side of it, paid to promote it. I'm sure that they did not reveal all they thought about the effects it had on the community in the short time we toured together. Even though I was engaged with this perspective of the issue, one side of the coin, I expected from my position to be clear about gentrification in Yonkers. I found that I agreed with the agents, but could not forget all the others being affected. I felt I still cannot confidently take a stance on the issue. How different am I from the character I was pretending to be? Did I have to pick a side? Helgera says that art of any kind can avoid taking positions on current and political affairs. But I continue to work on the project, my designs and prints of the photographs, with an objective perspective. Later, when I spent a morning photographing the Hudson River, the day was sunny and fresh. The water, though polluted, dazzled glamorously, and it was obvious to me why riverfront property was so coveted. Springtime could be felt in the air, seen in the blooming trees across the river. The river seemed unthreatened by the property on its front. I could not criticize what I perceived as harmony. Helgera explains that an artist's dedication of time and effort into space greatly determines the socially engaged project's success. I felt my relationship to Yonkers was always a temporary one. For many reasons, I was not able to engage with the community how I would have liked to. Because of this ephemerality, it feels wrong to project any of myself, any opinion, into the community and environment. This is why I have kept my photographs private, personal, and will only share them with my class, professors, and few others. I will not continue to print or distribute the photographs of the water I took as planned, because to me they are representative of the issue, but only contribute indifference to the conversation around it. A humanitarian might think this unhelpful to the discourse. All that occurred to me in Yonkers, all the seemingly little that I have affected, has led me to this writing. I felt my work there was performatively intense, both in class and out, and could be expressed productively as a creative writing piece, as performative as performance. Marina Abramovich has described performance as energy dialogue, meaning that there is a dialectical relationship between all that has energy, actors, materials. This document is a product of my social interactions within the public and private spaces of Yonkers, human and non-human. It is my intention to read the script aloud publicly outside the Yonkers Public Library in an effort to make a spectacle of my experience. My performance will be unannounced but documented, similar to how I have entered and left Yonkers. I expect that people passing by will not engage with me, but I am open to any exchange that may occur. This performance will be representative of how I have engaged with the space, a projection of my efforts and conclusions. This experience has been valuable to me as an artist. For this reason, I believe this work is socially engaged. As a queer identifying artist, I want to continue to disrupt, subvert, and challenge what is accepted as art. In this performance chapter of their book, Helgera describes the French medieval tradition called the Feast of the Ass, where a lowly donkey is brought into a church and celebrated. He refers to this as an example of how institutional structures can be strategically carnivalized to make new, meaningful statements. Finally, the product, in an art market sense, may not be that relevant or even materialized. The boundaries between artwork and experience are blurred. In the same way that authorship and collectivity are blended, documentation and literature are one, and fiction is turned into real experience and vice versa. All components of a traditional structure of production and interpretation are turned around and resignified. Nonetheless, this resignification rarely is done for its own sake. We could call it a feast of the ass with an agenda. The exchanges that take place in these experiences are constructive in a direct or indirect fashion.